What's up guys, and welcome to my 4.0 updated Cerydra guide. In this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build Cerydra, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, the stats for Mainstats and Substats, and then some general team building ideas. Cerydra's basic attack deals wind damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill grants military merit to a designated ally and gives Cerydra a point of charge. Charge is capped at 8 points, and reaching 6 charge points automatically upgrades military merit to the peerage state and will also dispel their crowd control debuffs. Peerage is also considered to have military merit simultaneously. The character with peerage will have their crit damage dealt for their skill damage increased by 72% and their all-type res pen increased by 10%, and also will trigger a coup de main when their skill is used on an enemy target. After coup de main ends, consumes 6 points of charge to revert peerage to military merit. Her ultimate grants Cerydra 2 charge, will deal wind damage based off her attack to all enemies, and if no one on the field has military merit, prioritizes granting military merit to the first character position in the team. Her talent will increase military merit character's attack by an amount equal to 24% of Cerydra's attack. Whenever the character with military merit does a basic attack or skill, Cerydra will gain 1 charge. During coup de main, Cerydra cannot gain charge. After the character with military merit uses an attack, Cerydra additionally will deal an instance of wind additional damage equal to 60% of her attack and will trigger up to 20 times. And the trigger count resets every time Cerydra uses her ultimate. Military merit only takes effect on the most recent target, and when the target changes, Cerydra's charge is reset to 0. For technique, using technique will make the person entering combat become military merit, and so you enter the battle using a free skill without consuming a skill point. For a quick example, let's say you use your technique, you swap to Anaxa, you use the skill, and you enter combat with Anaxa. Cerydra will automatically use a skill on Anaxa, dedicating him as military merit. For her bonus traces, her A2 for every 100 of Cerydra's attack that exceeds 2000 increases her crit damage by 18% up to a maximum of 360%. Her A4 will increase Cerydra's crit rate to 100%. While Cerydra's charge is below its maximum, the character with military merit using their ultimate will grant Cerydra 1 charge and will trigger once per battle. Her A6 will be when she uses skill, increases its speed by 20 for both Cerydra and the teammate with military merit for 3 turns. Anytime the character with military merit uses basic attack or skill, regenerates 5 energy for Cerydra. And then for her Eidolons, her E1 will make it to where the character with military merit ignores 16% of the target's defense. Upgrading military merit to peerage, the character additionally will ignore 20% of the target's defense when dealing skill damage specifically. When Cerydra uses her skill, regenerates 2 energy for the designated target. Her E2 will make the character with military merit deal 40% increased damage. While teammate on the field has military merit, Cerydra's damage dealt will be increased by 160%. Her E4 increases Cerydra's ultimate damage multiplier by 240%. And her E6 will give the character that has military merit a 20% increase to all-type res pen, and the multiplier for the additional damage triggered via a military merit will be increased by 30%. While teammate on the field has military merit, Cerydra's all-type res pen will also be increased by 20%. For Cerydra's best Lightcones, first I'm going to start off with the more general best options to use, as there's some specific few you can really use specifically when you are using her with Finon, which is one of her best teammates. But overall, best in slot is going to be her own signature Lightcone, providing the wearer a 64% increase to attack. After using ultimate to attack, recovers 1 skill point. After the wearer uses their skill on 1 ally character, increases the skill damage dealt by the target by 54% for 3 turns. The massive increase to attack is going to be great for her attack requirements, as you want to build as much attack as you can just so you can get a further increase to her buff to the actual military merit character. So an attack increase is very good, and 64% is an insane amount. If you are in ever need of a pinch skill point, now whenever you use Cerydra's ultimate, you will get a skill point back as her ultimate does attack. And the 2 characters she is really made for both do primary skill damage. Because of that, they are able to get a 54% increase to skill damage, which is going to be a massive increase. So for where her role actually resides, this Lightcone is just perfect, providing a bunch of attack to increase her attack buff. Extra skill point, you only really need that in a pinch as I did mention, and then up to a 54% increase to skill damage dealt for the target you are buffing, which is going to increase their damage by a lot, making this overall the best in slot. You can also use the event Lightcone that came with her when she did release, also increasing the wearer's attack by 16%. After the wearer uses skill, increases attack by 8%, stacking up to 3 times. And at S5, it's 32% attack for free, and then the attack stack becomes 16%. So a free 32% increase in attack, and then the increase for stacking at S5 becomes up to 48%. So it gives you up to an 80% attack increase, which is 16% more than her signature. It just doesn't really give anything else. It's not giving actual buffs themselves, but it does increase her attack by a significant amount to further increase her buff once again. So for better attack buff, you can very much run this on her as well. Of course, every Harmony's favorite Lightcone, Dance Dance Dance, is also applicable to her. When the wearer uses their ultimate, all allies' actions are advanced forward by 60%. and at S5 is 24%. So anytime you ult, you're giving everyone a 24% action advance. If you are using this Lightcone, just be sure you're achieving a speed breakpoint or an action value breakpoint that actually matters. It doesn't have to be gaining a whole extra turn. It could just be something simple as attacking before an enemy would usually attack, which could potentially mess something up or even kill you. As long as something is happening there, it's beneficial. But if you're just running this on a completely untreated speed tuning team, you're not going to get much value out of it. But if you are actually building into something that makes it matter, it can actually be one of the best options to use. Pairing her alongside a wind DPS, so primarily a Noxa, you can use Planetary Rendezvous, which after entering battle, if an ally deals the same damage type as the wearer, damage dealt increases by 12% and at S5 is 24%. So it really just becomes 24% increased damage for anyone that is wind. So her primary teammate is a Noxa, you can just give him some damage dealt there. It's not that great, especially with the Noxa since he has so much damage dealt anyways, but if you have none of the other options, you can still use this in the meantime. Now these two other options I really only recommend using with Finon. One of them you can use elsewhere, but it is a little bit tricky. I only say use this with Finon is just because she might struggle to get the actual uptime back, or it might take a little bit at least. But Finon, when he goes into ultimate, he is able to just continuously have the entire buffs throughout his ultimate, so once you pop his ultimate, you don't have to worry about it. And one of them is going to be Sparkle's Lightcone, providing the wearer 32% crit damage at the start of the battle, where will gain mass for 3 turns. While wearer has mass, all teammates will have their crit rate increased by 10% and crit damage increased by 28%. Not gonna bother going over this. Pretty much you need skill points to get the actual effect back. So if you were to lose the mass buff after 4 turns, you would need to recover skill points and get 4 Radiant Flame stacks, so 4 skill points. It would remove Radiant Flame to give you the mass stacks back. Nonetheless, you only want to use this with Finon just because Cerydra has no way of recovering skill points outside of a signature Lightcone, but obviously you wouldn't have that effect here because you're running this one. Because of that, you need to get Finon into ultimate, which within 4 turns of Cerydra, that's very easy. Once he goes into ultimate, he will have the full 10% crit rate and 28% crit damage, and then the crit damage increase to the wearer is just going to increase Cerydra's personal damage, which isn't too much anyways, but I guess it is a little nice bonus. If you are someone that has high investment and you use this Lightcone on her, if you're able to clear within 4 Cerydra turns, then you can still use this Lightcone in that case, but for majority of people, that is not going to apply to you. It's only really recommended when pairing her with Finon. The other one is Robin's signature Lightcone, which for every time an ally attacks, the wearer will gain a stack of Cantillation. Each stack increases the wearer's energy regen by 3%, that stacks up to 5 times. When the wearer uses ultimate, it will remove all Cantillation stacks and will give the wearer Cadenza. Cadenza will increase the wearer's attack by 48% and increase all allies' damage dealt by 24% for 1 turn. Extra energy regen rate to build up to get to the ultimate, and then getting up to ultimate, once you use it, you get the Cadenza buff, which will increase Cerydra's own attack, which also shortly increases her buff by a bit, and then also gives everyone 24% damage dealt, which is going to be removed quickly. So you would need to really time it before your primary DPS attacks and make sure you actually have the buff up, just since it's not going to be permanently up. If you pair this with Finon, however, as I did mention with Sparkle's Lightcone, he will take the buffs into his ultimate and keep it for the entire duration. So you can use it with Finon more, but you can still use it more generically. Just be sure you time your ultimates if you are using it. And then for relic sets, overall the most common one is going to be Relieved Ordeal, 2-piece increasing speed by 6%, 4-piece when skill or ultimate is used on one ally target, increases the ability target's crit damage by 18% for 2 turns and stacks up to 2 times. 2-piece makes her easier to build as you do want to build speed on her, trying to get her to at least hyperspeed. 4-piece provides up to a 36% crit damage increase to that person you are buffing. So that's just going to be a damage increase for them, and it's also very easy to stack since Cerydra's ultimate does just target that one ally. And you can also stack it up right away since Cerydra is usually the first or second character to act in a battle, as she, again, usually is going to be built with a good amount of speed. So you go into the battle, you have the technique skill proc for free, and then you get to just use the skill again, and then you have the full 36% increase to crit damage. And then you can just constantly skill to keep uptime on it. Maybe sometimes you'll be missing 1 stack, but that's not that much of a problem. You can just restack it when you need. And then when pairing her with Finon, you just get that max stack. You don't really have to think about it much. You go into ultimate, and then he has it for the whole time. For ease of building her and also a really good buff, overall this is the best in slot. If trying to reach a big amount of turns, such as an additional action within the first MLC cycle, you can very much use Eagle Set as well. 2-piece increases wind damage by 10%, which she is wind, so you can actually get a benefit from that. 4-piece, after the wearer uses their ultimate, their action is advanced forward by 25%. As you build Cerydra relatively fast, and she also has the 20 speed that she gives to herself, you can combine all that with this set to actually reach really good thresholds. Of course, you would need to build a good amount of speed, or just like as I did mention with DDD, as long as it lets you act before an enemy, whereas they usually would kill you, that can also be a benefit. But if you just run this and you don't really do anything with speed tuning, and you kind of just have it proc and then nothing really happens, you don't really go over anything that matters, or you don't reach an extra turn, then there's not really much of a point in running this. You're better off running anything else. Past that, it would be 2-piece, so you can do 2-piece of one of the speed increasing sets, so Hackerspace, Relieved Ordeal, or Warrior Goddess. And if you want to get even more speed, you can combine that just 2-piece with that, so you get 12% speed, or you can combine 2-piece speed with one of the attack percent increasing sets, so the Hero set, Winsoric set, Dot set, or Musketeer for a bigger buff. And then for Planar Ornaments, you can really give her any of the supportive sets when they are applicable. For Lushaka, as long as they scale off attack, which usually they will, 5% energy regen rate for the wear, 12% attack for the character position first in the team lineup, so if they benefit from attack, they get a good buff from that. You can even use something like Penacony when pairing her with a wind DPS like Anaxa, 5% energy regen rate as well, and 10% damage for all other allies that are the same type as the wear. Heal also does work, and so does Ageless. They're more outdated, but the energy regen increase isn't super important on Cerydra, especially when paired with Finon. Whereas effect res increases by 10% crit damage for everyone reaching 30% or higher effect res. So just extra 10% crit damage, and then for Ageless, it's max HP, which is just an increase in survivability. It doesn't actually provide anything else outside of that. And a free 8% attack for the entire team, since 120 speed or higher is not a problem, and you physically cannot go lower than that, unless you didn't unlock her bonus trace, which you would be throwing. For the main stats on the Relics, for the body, you want to run attack percent. For the feet, you want to run speed. For the orb, you want to run attack percent. And for the link rope, you want energy regen rate. For the substats, first is going to be speed tuning goals. Cerydra with her 20 speed buff is very easy to reach hyperspeed, as you really only need 140.1. 140.1 speed outside of battle would translate to 160.1 speed in battle, as she gives herself 20 speed and also the character that has the buff. So speed tuning isn't very hard for her, just try to get as much speed as possible. If you're running a setup with Eagle, then you're going to obviously want a lot more, reaching up to 180 or higher, or at least to any point that helps your breakpoints. Past that, if you are running Broken Keel, of course get the 30% effect res requirement, and then anything past that is just more attack to increase her buff, and then anything after that would be either crit damage if you just want her to do slightly more damage, or just survivability stats such as HP percent or defense percent, or even more effect res. A good amount of attack for Cerydra to have is just roughly 4k. If you're able to reach around 4,000, that is going to be good. Any higher, obviously, is going to be better. So just aim for roughly around 4,000. Cerydra is a more niche character, so for team building, it's going to be relatively quick, as there is primarily 2 DPS that fully utilize her to the best, while any other team doesn't necessarily utilize her as a best in slot ever. So I'm primarily going to talk about 2 of those DPS, which their teams are actually insanely similar. And of course, that is going to be the 2 primary skill considered DPS, which is Finon and Anaxa. So this is going to be considered the same. I'm just going to use Anaxa here more because I like him more. So it would be these 2, or again, Finon if you're using him instead. Third slot would go to another support. That would obviously depend on what you do have. For someone like Anaxa, you can run a -1 setup, so you'd run Bronya or also just Sunday, as both of them are able to utilize the -1 setup. So it could be these 3, and then last slot could go to a sustain. Just use whatever best option you have in that slot. Donhang works good on this team, but you can very much use someone like Fofo or even like Aventurian. Just whatever is your best option for sustaining. And then if you're doing sustainless, of course, instead of the sustain, you'd add another support. That would depend on who you have. You can throw on someone like Ruan Mei, you can throw on someone like Tribi, you can throw a debuffer like Cypher specifically, as Cypher actually does work good with both Finon and Anaxa. Anaxa has more access to more supports, as he's able to utilize quite literally anyone, but for Finon, they generally work pretty well as well. And then for Cyrene related teams, for Anaxa specifically, usually you're not going to pair a action advance support like you can. But since Cyrene does provide the action advance, you'd mainly want to be running her as the action advancer here instead. And if you have a -1 setup, that is actually going to mess it up sometimes. And then last thought, of course, sustain. You can use Danang, Huopo, all the ones I mentioned, whatever is available. And if you're doing sustainless, another support. Same thing applies to Finon. Like if you're running Finon here instead and you're running Cyrene, he can still utilize someone like Sunday or Bronya or Sparkle as an action advancer instead. Especially with Sparkle getting her buffs, she's actually going to be really good on this team. So the team would look something like this. Since the Cyrene buff here is not actually action advancing Finon, so you don't have to worry about messing up speed tuning consistently, as you just plop the buff on him once, make sure everything's active, go into Finon's ultimate, and then do everything there. And that is the full updated Cerydra guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of style content, and I'll see you later. Peace out.